He thought he could throw away our marriage, cheat, lie, and walk away without a second thought. But what he didn't realize was that I was stronger than he ever imagined. Divorce was his victory, or so he thought. What he didn't see was how my broken heart would heal, how my life would rebuild itself piece by piece, and how one day, he would regret everything. I still remember the day I realized everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. It started like any ordinary morning. I woke up to the soft hum of our ceiling fan, sunlight spilling across the bedroom floor, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee coming from the kitchen. I smiled at the thought of him, my husband, sitting at the table, probably scrolling on his phone, wearing that calm, confident expression I had once adored. Little did I know, that morning would mark the beginning of the end of everything I thought I had built. He came into the bedroom later, pretending everything was normal, giving me that casual smile, the one that used to make my heart skip a beat. "Morning, beautiful," he said, his voice low, casual, familiar. I hugged him, like I always did, feeling the warmth that I had once found so comforting. But there was a strange tension in the air, one I couldn't put my finger on. A few days later, the truth hit me like a brick to the chest. I was cleaning the living room when I found a message on his phone. I had no reason to look, but something told me to. That one innocent glance turned my world upside down. Her name flashed across the screen, and the words were unmistakable. It wasn't just friendship, it was the kind of message that made your blood freeze. Love, intimacy, secrets, things I had never shared with him, but that he had shared with someone else. My hands shook as I held the phone. I wanted to scream, to throw it across the room, to demand answers. But instead, I just stood there, frozen, my heart breaking silently. I confronted him that night. My voice trembled as I asked, "Who is she?" He looked at me, and for a moment, I saw something in his eyes, fear, guilt, or maybe just impatience. "It's nothing," he said casually, too casually. "Just someone I met at work." But I knew. Deep down, I knew. My instincts had never failed me. And that night, as I lay in bed, pretending to sleep while tears streamed silently down my cheeks, realized that the man I loved, the man I trusted with my entire heart, was slipping away from me. Weeks turned into months. Every smile he gave me felt rehearsed, every touch felt distant. I watched him become someone I didn't recognize. I tried to save us, begged for honesty, tried to remind him of the promises we had made when we said "I do." But nothing worked. It was like watching a flower die, petal by petal, unable to stop it. Then came the day he told me he wanted a divorce. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't even look particularly sad. He just said it, like stating the weather, like it was something inevitable. "I think it's over," he said. "We're done." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the absurdity of it all hit me at once. "Done?" I whispered. "Done? After everything?" He nodded. "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry." I felt like my soul had been ripped out of my body. Every memory we had, every laugh, every dream, every plan we had made for our future, it felt like sand slipping through my fingers. I wanted to cry, to scream, to beg him to stay, but something inside me stopped me. Something stronger than my heartbreak whispered, "You deserve better." The days after the divorce filing were the hardest. I had to go through the motions, face friends and family who tried to console me, and hear the same lines over and over. "You'll find someone better. Time heals everything. You'll be okay." I didn't believe any of it. Not then. My heart felt shattered beyond repair. Every time I passed our old apartment, every time I saw his car, every time someone mentioned his name, I felt a pang so sharp it was physical. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, life began to shift. I started small, long walks in the park, writing in my journal, reconnecting with old friends. I discovered that when the world was quiet and I was alone with my thoughts, I could breathe again. The nights didn't feel so suffocating anymore. I began to remember the woman I was before. The marriage, before the betrayal, the woman who laughed easily and dreamed without fear. One evening, months after the divorce, I ran into an old friend at a coffee shop. We hadn't seen each other in years. He greeted me with a warm smile, and we spent hours talking about everything: life, work, love, heartbreak, healing. And for the first time in months, I laughed. A real laugh, not the hollow one I had been forcing myself to produce for polite company. Healing didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, painful process. There were moments I cried in the shower, moments I screamed into my pillow, moments I questioned whether I would ever feel whole again. But with each passing day, I realized that the pain didn't define me. It was just a part of my journey, a chapter in my story that was not the whole book. Then came the shock I hadn't expected. He reached out to me. Not casually, not as a friend, but with regret dripping from every word. He apologized not just for the affair, but for everything. For leaving, for breaking my heart, for thinking he could replace something he had destroyed so easily. I made a mistake, he said. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. I've lost everything that mattered. I listened, my heart steady, my mind clear. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel bitterness. I felt nothing. Or maybe I felt everything. I felt the strength I had built in his absence, the life I had rebuilt with my own hands, the love I had rediscovered for myself. He didn't understand that his regret came too late. I had healed. I had grown. I had learned that my worth was never dependent on someone else's approval or love. And in that moment, I realized something profound. Sometimes the person who breaks you is the very person who teaches you how strong you can be. I walked away from that conversation with my head held high. I didn't need his apology, and I certainly didn't need his presence in my life. I had everything I needed. Already, myself, my dreams, my strength. And as I looked at the sunset that evening, golden light spilling over the horizon, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. My heart, once shattered, was healing. Slowly, beautifully, completely. And I knew deep down that he would always regret losing me. But that was his burden to carry, not mine. I had my life back. I had my dignity. I had my freedom. And nothing, not even betrayal, could ever take that away from me. After our confrontation, life didn't get easier, it got colder. Every corner of our shared life seemed poisoned by betrayal. I couldn't eat without thinking of him with her, couldn't sleep without replaying their secret messages in my head. Friends and family tried to console me, but their words were like whispers in a storm. Nothing could reach me. I had loved someone completely, and he had discarded that love like trash. I moved out of our apartment a week after the divorce papers were signed. Packing my life into boxes felt surreal. Every picture I folded, every piece of clothing I touched, carried a memory, a reminder of what once was and what had been broken. I remember staring at our wedding photo, the smiles on our faces so wide, so innocent. I almost wanted to scream at it, scream at him, scream at myself for ever believing in forever. But I didn't. I just closed the box and left, stepping into a world that suddenly felt harsh, empty, and terrifying. The first few months were the worst. I felt like a ghost in my own life, drifting through the motions. Work, errands, grocery shopping, everything was mechanical. I avoided mirrors because I couldn't stand the reflection of someone I barely recognized. My friends tried to get me out, dragged me to movies, dinners, even casual hangouts, but every smile I forced felt hollow. I was surviving, not living. One night, I sat alone in my small apartment, the city lights outside glowing faintly through the blinds. I could hear the faint hum of traffic below, a reminder that life went on, indifferent to my pain. I held a glass of wine, staring at the ceiling, feeling tears threaten to spill again. And then, something unexpected happened. I felt a flicker of anger, not the helpless, trembling kind, but a cold, sharp, burning anger. Not just at him, but at the whole world for showing me how fragile trust could be. I realized that I didn't have to stay broken. I didn't have to let this betrayal define me. And so, slowly, I began to rebuild. I started with small steps, early morning walks, journaling my thoughts, reconnecting with old friends I had neglected. I remembered the woman I used to be before the heartbreak, confident, laughing easily, dreaming freely. And bit by bit, I found pieces of her again. Months later, I decided to enroll in a local art class. Painting had always been my escape as a child, a place where I could pour out emotions words couldn't capture. That first day, I felt awkward, unsure, surrounded by strangers who didn't know my story. But as I dipped the brush into vibrant colors, as I smeared paint across the canvas, I felt a release I hadn't experienced in years. Each stroke was a reclaiming of my soul. Every color, every line, was me saying, I am still here. I am still whole. Then came the unexpected twist. I ran into him. I had no intention of seeing him, yet there he was at a mutual friend's gallery opening. He looked different. Older, perhaps, but worn in a way that mirrored my own nights of sleepless pain. Our eyes met across the room, and I felt the old storm surge briefly, memories, anger, heartbreak, longing, but I refused to let it consume me. He approached cautiously, words measured. I heard about your art, he said, attempting a smile that looked strained. It's beautiful. I nodded politely, careful not to let my emotions betray the strength I had built over these months. Thank you, I said softly. It's been healing. His eyes flickered with something I had seen before, regret. A quiet, sinking realization that he had lost something irreplaceable. I wanted to look away, to leave, but a part of me listened, curious about the man who had once broken me so completely. I never realized, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, how much I lost. I felt a chill run down my spine, not from fear, but from recognition. He finally understood, but understanding didn't undo the past. Maybe, I said, keeping my tone neutral, you're realizing it. Too late. He nodded, swallowing hard, but I saw the truth in his eyes. He had spent months, maybe years, chasing something that would never fill the void he created. And for the first time, I felt pity not for him, but for the man who had failed to see the value of what he had. After that night, I didn't see him again for a long time. I continued my life, focusing on work, friends, and my art. Each new painting, each new canvas, felt like a victory over the pain that had once consumed me. Slowly, I began dating again, not recklessly, but with intention. I wanted someone who would value honesty, loyalty, and love, not someone who would teach me heartbreak as a lesson. One day, months later, he contacted me again. This time, it wasn't a casual apology, it was desperation. He had hit rock bottom, lost business, lost friends, lost the admiration he had once taken for granted. I don't know what to do, he admitted in a long message. Everything I thought mattered. It doesn't mean anything without you. I read it carefully, letting every word sink in. And as I sat there, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to feel before: peace. I didn't need his recognition, his apologies, or his regrets. I had my life. I had my strength. I had rebuilt myself from the ashes he left behind. And that was something he could never take away. I replied once, simply, I hope you find your way. But I am not your path. And, just like that, I put my phone down. No tears, no anger, no longing. Just quiet strength. That's when I knew the woman he had broken was no longer the same. She was stronger, wiser, and unbreakable. And while he would forever regret losing me, I would forever cherish finding myself. Life continued, beautiful and imperfect. I traveled, laughed, cried, loved in new ways. Each day, I remembered the lesson betrayal had taught me, that pain can either destroy you or transform you. I chose transformation. And as I stood one evening on the balcony of my new apartment, the city lights shimmering like stars below, I whispered to myself, I survived. I healed. I am free. And somewhere I knew he thought of me, regretted the choices he had made, but I didn't care. My heart had found its rhythm again, and I was finally, completely, unstoppable. Time had changed me. I was no longer the woman who had cried herself to sleep, the one who had begged for honesty and got only lies. I had grown stronger, wiser, and more careful with my heart. But even as life moved forward, I couldn't completely ignore the occasional pang of memory, the laughter we had shared, the dreams we had built together, the intimacy that was real before betrayal had poisoned everything. One afternoon, I was at a small art gallery, hosting my first solo exhibition. The walls were adorned with my paintings, each one a reflection of my journey through heartbreak to healing. The crowd murmured appreciatively, and for the first time in months, I felt truly proud of myself. People approached me, complimented my work, asked questions about my inspirations. I smiled politely, answering each one, feeling alive, empowered. And then I saw him. He was standing in the corner, staring at a painting I had done months ago, a canvas filled with fiery reds and blacks, chaotic yet strikingly beautiful. I froze for a moment, my breath catching in my throat. His expression was unreadable at first, but as our eyes met, I saw it: desperation, regret, and an ache that mirrored my own pain from before. He approached cautiously, almost hesitantly. These are incredible," he said, his voice low. "You've grown so much." I didn't answer immediately. I let him stand there, letting the silence hang between us like a thick curtain. Finally, I said, "Thank you. It's been a process." He nodded, swallowing hard. I need to say something. I've been a fool. I thought I could have it all: freedom, excitement, someone else. But I was blind. I lost the most important thing in my life. You. I could feel my pulse quicken, not from longing, but from anger tempered with power. He had broken me once. Did he really think a few words could undo years of pain? I looked him straight in the eyes. "You lost me a long time ago. I'm not the person you think I am anymore." He stepped closer, desperation dripping from his posture. "Please, just hear me out. I've changed. I can be the man you wanted me to be. Give me one chance to fix what I destroyed." I laughed softly, almost bitterly. "Fix it? You destroyed trust. You destroyed my life. You can't just fix what you broke. That's not how it works." Tears threatened his eyes, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of pity. But I pushed it away. I had learned long ago that pity doesn't heal a broken heart. Strength does. And I had it in abundance now. "I'm done," I said finally, my voice calm but firm. "I am not your second chance. I am not your safety net. I am done with you and the pain you caused me." He sank into a chair nearby, silent, defeated. I could see the weight of his regret settling over him, like a physical burden. And in that moment, I realized how much I had healed, not because he regretted, but because I had rebuilt myself without him. Weeks passed, and life continued in its unpredictable rhythm. I traveled, painted, laughed, and rediscovered friendships I had ignored for years. My heart, once broken, had mended itself piece by piece. I had even started dating casually, not seriously, but enough to remember that love could exist without betrayal, without fear. Then, one evening, a message appeared on my phone from him. I hesitated before opening it, but curiosity and a strange sense of closure won over. "I can't stop thinking about you. I see now what I threw away. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I need you to know. I'm sorry. I was a coward. A fool. And I miss you every day." I read it twice, then deleted it. No response. No tears. No longing. Just the calm satisfaction of someone who had finally freed themselves from the chains of the past. But he wasn't done. He appeared at events, called mutual friends, even left notes at my studio. Each time, I felt a flicker of old anger, but also a deep, unshakable pride. I was no longer chasing approval or love from someone who had proven unworthy. I had built a life where his presence, or absence, didn't dictate my happiness. One day, he showed up at my gallery again, unannounced. This time, he brought a gift, a painting, amateurish but heartfelt, with a note: "I wish I could be the person who deserved you." I held it in my hands, feeling the emotions it stirred: sorrow, regret, a haunting echo of the love we had once shared. But I also felt clarity. I placed the painting on the floor untouched. "It's beautiful," I said softly. "But it's not for me." He looked up, a mixture of frustration and heartbreak in his eyes. "Please, just one conversation. One last chance to make you understand." I shook my head. "You will never make me understand, because what you did is beyond words. And I don't need you to understand. I need you to leave." And finally, he did. Months later, I met someone new. Not a rebound, not a replacement, but someone who valued honesty, kindness, and shared my dreams. He didn't ask for my past, didn't judge the scars I carried. He simply stood by me, steady, patient, and loving. And I realized something profound. The man who had broken me taught me a lesson I would carry forever. That pain, betrayal, and loss could either destroy you or make you unbreakable. I had chosen the latter. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I think of him. I wonder if he ever truly understands what he lost. I doubt it, because understanding comes too late when the heart has already healed. And that is the ultimate power, to heal, to move forward, and to thrive, leaving those who hurt you to live in the shadow of their own regret. By the end of part 3, I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor, an artist, a woman in love with her own life. And somewhere deep down, I knew the man who once shattered my world would carry the weight of losing me for the rest of his days. I had my revenge, not with anger, not with malice, but with life. With freedom. With a heart that refused to remain broken. And that was worth more than anything he could ever offer. I had built a life I was proud of. My art was thriving, my friendships were deeper than ever, and my heart, once shattered, had learned to beat confidently again. But the world has a way of reminding you of your past when you least expect it. And I was about to face him, my cheating ex-husband, one final time, in a way that would leave everyone around us shocked. It started with an invitation. I was invited to speak at a charity gala for women's empowerment, a cause I had become deeply passionate about since my divorce. The event promised art exhibits, speeches, and awards recognizing women who had overcome adversity. I accepted, eager to share my story of heartbreak, healing, and resilience. I arrived at the gala in a flowing, elegant dress, feeling the quiet confidence that only comes from truly owning your life. I smiled politely at the hosts, mingled with attendees, and admired the other women who had turned their pain into purpose. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of belonging, of power, of being in the right place at the right time. And then I saw him. He was there, of course. I hadn't expected it, but I wasn't surprised either. Word had apparently spread that I would be a guest speaker, and he had come, likely hoping to witness my fall, or perhaps to try once again to worm his way back into my life. But he looked different. Not just physically, though the stress lines on his face betrayed sleepless nights and regret, but in his aura. He seemed smaller somehow, diminished, as if he already sensed that the woman he had betrayed was no longer the same person he once thought he could control. The gala began, and I took the stage, standing tall, my heart steady. I shared my story with the audience, speaking from a place of raw honesty. I described the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the months of despair that had threatened to consume me. I told them about the nights of tears, the moments of doubt, and the fear that my heart would never heal. But I also spoke of resilience, of rebuilding, of reclaiming my life. I described how I had turned my pain into art, how each painting was a declaration of freedom, each brushstroke a reminder of strength. I spoke about self-love, boundaries, and the power of moving forward when someone who once shattered you tries to return. As I finished my speech, the room erupted in applause. I felt a warmth I hadn't felt in years, a validation that my journey had meaning beyond my own survival. And then, almost inevitably, he approached. The crowd parted subtly as he stepped forward, his eyes locked on mine. I just wanted to see, he began, his voice shaky, unsure. I couldn't stop thinking about you, about us, what I did. I took a deep breath, letting the silence hang for a moment. You're here, I said softly, because you thought you could reclaim something you lost. But this is not your stage. It's mine. This story, this moment, this life, it belongs to me now. He faltered, clearly unprepared for the strength in my voice. The people around us watched, sensing the tension, and I realized that this was my moment, not just to assert my independence, but to demonstrate publicly that a woman who has been betrayed is capable of unimaginable power. I have moved on, I continued, my voice clear, resonant. I have built a life full of love, purpose, and strength. You are welcome to witness it, but you will never be a part of it again. Your regret is yours to carry. My life is mine to live. The room seemed to hold its breath. I could see the astonishment on his face, the disbelief, The dawning realization that the woman he had underestimated was not only thriving, but utterly untouchable by his attempts at reconciliation. Then, as if on cue, one of my art pieces was displayed on the main screen, a painting titled Phoenix Rising. It depicted a woman emerging from flames, her expression serene, powerful, unbroken. The symbolism was undeniable, and the audience murmured, captivated by the emotion it conveyed. I turned to him, meeting his gaze fully. "This is what I am now," I said quietly. "Do you understand? You cannot destroy what you cannot touch." He looked away, the weight of his mistakes pressing down on him like never before. The man who had once been my world now stood small, exposed, powerless. I realized then that his greatest punishment wasn't anything I could do, it was watching me thrive without him, fully alive, fully in control. After the gala, people approached me, offering congratulations, sharing their own stories of heartbreak and healing. I smiled, accepting each story with empathy, but also recognizing that mine was unique. I had faced betrayal, endured its pain, and come out victorious, not through revenge, not through anger, but through reclaiming myself. Weeks later, he reached out one final time. This time, it was a phone call. I answered briefly, curious what words a man in such despair might speak. I can't believe it," he said, voice trembling. You're amazing. I've never seen anything like it. How did you recover so completely?" I laughed softly, a warm, triumphant sound. "Because I chose me. I chose my life. I chose healing over despair, strength over bitterness, freedom over your regret. That's how." There was silence on the other end of the line, then a whispered, almost broken, "I wish I could go back." I smiled faintly. "You can't. And I wouldn't let you if you could. Goodbye." And with that, I hung up. Months turned into years. I traveled, my art gained international recognition, and I met someone who loved me fully, without lies, without deception. He respected my past, celebrated my present, and dreamed with me of a future filled with honesty and joy. Occasionally, I would hear whispers about him, how he had never recovered from losing me, how he regretted every choice he had made. But I didn't care. My life was rich, full, and untouchable by his absence or regret. One evening, as I looked at the sunset from my balcony, the city stretching endlessly before me, I realized the truth of everything I had endured. Betrayal had not broken me. It had forged me into someone stronger, someone capable of facing any storm and still rising. My heart, once shattered, had become a beacon of resilience, shining brighter than ever before. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of the world, he knew he had lost the most important thing in his life. But that knowledge could never harm me. I had already won. Years had passed since the man who had once shattered my life tried to return. In that time, I had grown in ways I could never have imagined. My art had become an extension of my soul, reaching hearts across the world. My friendships had deepened, my confidence had transformed into quiet, unshakable power, and my life had become a testament to resilience and self-love. Yet, life has a way of testing the lessons we learn, even years later. One sunny afternoon, as I was preparing for an international art exhibition in New York, I received an unexpected message. "I need to see you. It's important." My first instinct was to ignore it. I had learned long ago that he had no place in my life. But a small, nagging curiosity, a human desire to know the final piece of his story, made me pause. I decided not to meet him in person. Instead, I replied, "There's nothing left to discuss. My life is full. Yours must be yours to live." His reply came almost instantly, "Please, just one last meeting. I can't move forward without closure." Closure. Funny, isn't it? He had destroyed my trust, broken my heart, abandoned our life, yet he now sought closure from me, as if I owed him forgiveness or understanding. But I was stronger than that. I had learned that closure doesn't come from someone else, it comes from within. And still, a part of me agreed, not to please him, but to finally end the chapter decisively. We met at a quiet cafe, neutral territory. When I arrived, He was already seated, hands fidgeting nervously, eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. I approached, calm, composed, wearing the strength I had cultivated over years of pain and triumph. "Hello," he said quietly. "Thank you for coming." I nodded, taking a seat. "I didn't come for you," I said. "I came for me. To close this chapter once and for all." He swallowed hard, the vulnerability in his eyes striking me. I've lost everything, haven't I?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "You've lost me," I said. Firmly. "But more importantly, you've lost the chance to learn what real love requires. And that's your lesson." He nodded, a mixture of shame, sorrow, and regret clouding his face. I was blind. I thought I could have it all, but in the process, I destroyed everything that mattered. "You did," I confirmed, my voice steady. "And now, the only thing left is for you to live with it." I've moved on. I'm happy. I'm thriving. And nothing you do or say can change that. He looked at me then, truly looked, and I saw the man who had once been arrogant, reckless, and selfish now broken, humbled by the consequences of his choices. But I felt no triumph in his suffering. My victory was silent, internal, unshakable. I didn't need him to suffer to feel strong, I only needed myself. I wish I could take it all back," he whispered. "You can't," I said simply. "And even if you could, I wouldn't let you. My life is mine now." He was silent for a long time, and in that silence, I felt a profound sense of peace. Years of pain, betrayal, heartbreak, and struggle had culminated in this moment. I had survived, I had healed, and I had emerged stronger than ever. Months later, I hosted a private exhibition of my work, attended by influential artists, collectors, and friends from around the world. Among the crowd was a man I had met during my travels, someone who had become a steady, loving presence in my life. He was not my replacement, because there is no replacement for the life I lived, but he was a companion, someone who understood me fully and celebrated my strength. At the exhibition, my paintings were displayed prominently. One piece, The Phoenix Rises, hung in the center, a vivid depiction of a woman emerging from flames, serene, powerful, and unbroken. The crowd marveled, but to me, it was more than just art. It was a symbol of everything I had endured and overcome. As the evening drew to a close, I received a message from my ex-husband. "I've heard about the exhibition. You've outdone yourself. I don't know how you did it." I smiled, not out of pride for him, but out of quiet triumph. I replied, "I did it because I chose myself. That's all the explanation you'll ever need." That night, as I looked out over the city's skyline from the gallery balcony, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The heartbreak, betrayal, and abandonment had once felt like unbearable weights, threatening to crush me entirely. But through patience, courage, and self-belief, I had turned those weights into fuel, propelling me toward a life of freedom, love, and authenticity. And I realized something vital. The true power of overcoming betrayal is not in seeking revenge, not in making someone regret losing you, but in reclaiming your own life, embracing your worth, and refusing to allow anyone else to define your happiness. In the following years, I continued to travel, create, and share my story with the world. I spoke at international conferences, inspired countless women to rise above their pain, and lived each day with intention, gratitude, and joy. The man who had once been the center of my world faded into a distant memory, a reminder not of loss, but of the strength I had discovered within myself. Occasionally, I would hear whispers about him, how he had never truly moved on, how his regrets haunted him. And while part of me felt a quiet satisfaction, the larger truth was that I no longer cared. My life was full, my heart whole, and my spirit unbreakable. I found love again, yes, but it was not born from the need to fill a void. It was born from the choice to share my life with someone who respected me, cherished me, and matched the strength I had cultivated. Together, we built a life of shared dreams, laughter, and authenticity. Years later, I would sometimes look back on the journey, the tears, the sleepless nights, the moments when despair threatened to consume me. I would remember the betrayal, yes, but I would also remember the triumph. The woman who had been broken was no longer the same. She had risen from the ashes, stronger, wiser, and unshakable. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of the world, the man who had once tried to destroy me knew, finally, that he had lost the most important person in his life. But it no longer mattered. Because I had already won the greatest victory of all, I had found myself, reclaimed my life, and built a future so bright, so full, that no regret, no betrayal, and no heartbreak could ever touch it again. The story concludes with ultimate closure, empowerment, and life triumph. The final message is unmistakable. Betrayal can hurt, but it can also teach, transform, and lead to unparalleled strength. The woman who was once broken is now unstoppable, thriving, and living fully, leaving the man who hurt her to live with his regret forever. Urdu.